Look at this. This dog's already wanting some. He heard me say there is beef and he came running. Anyways, I wanted to test this out. I do have a CGM on. What do you think? I think the dog wants it. All right. This is what it looks like. That looks delicious. He wants some. He's mad. It's like a soft marshmallowy fudge texture. It's not super sweet at all. It has just enough sweetness to taste good and not like a beefy, tallowy taste, if that makes sense. He really wants it. I'm going to finish this off, mark it in my CGM app, and show you what happens just eating one of these. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited you're here. Today we have Matt Owens, who is the owner and really the creator of a company called PowerPuck. And it's something that I've been able to try out recently. The Honey Bear Bar is the one that I've really been enjoying. And then we also have these SuperChews that my little guy enjoys. They're like little gummies, but packed full of protein. So we're going to talk a little bit about his products, how he started his company, and what motivated him. So a little intro about Matt. Matt started PowerPuck a year ago with the goal of figuring out why most foods today have so many ingredients and chemicals. He's an engineer by trade and likes solving problems. Matt decided to start focusing on health and wellness last year. So PowerPuck and his other products were created to address the lack of healthy nutrition and snack bar products available for adults and especially kids. I mean, we can see that in the grocery stores all the time. Whenever you turn around a product and look at the label, there's something in there that's not very good for us as humans. So, Matt, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let's start out with the very basic, simple question is what inspired you to create PowerPuck? We talked about it a little bit, but I know there must be more to the story. Was there a specific moment of experience that drove you to focus on the protein-rich and clean snacks? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yes, it actually really started with our kids. So we have 3 kids and fourth on the way, and our oldest just turned 5 years old. And when he was about 2, we were trying to find things to feed for him or to buy him to eat that not loaded with ingredients that I couldn't really pronounce the name of, especially when it came to products that contained fat, because I wanted my kids to eat more fat since that's so important to their growing brains. It was mostly seed oil type fats, polyunsaturated fats. And I wanted to steer away from that. And that got me into kind of trying to figure out how to make something with tallow, since there weren't really any products at the time that used it. And that's what eventually culminated in the PowerPuck, which is a meal replacement bar. It's really just tallow, protein powder, and pork rinds. And so we ended up adding in the crushed up pork rinds because, tallow is textureless, I would say. It doesn't have a lot of texture, and putting the pork rinds in there gave it a little bit of a kind of texture, like a little crunch and a little saltiness. And it ended up mixing really well together. And that was kind of the first product that we started selling. That wasn't the goal of the company. The goal was to, make more products that adults and kids could eat that just didn't have a lot of those ingredients in there that I didn't think were necessary, or at least I wanted to learn about more and try to understand if they were necessary. And that eventually led to the next product, which you talked about already, which is we call the SuperChews. And for all intents and purposes, those are gummy bears, but they are basically pure protein. The current formulation is no fat, no carbs, and it's really beef gelatin, electrolytes, and whey protein. So the protein makeup is pretty interesting. It was hard to figure out how to actually use the whey protein in the gummies, but when we figured that out, we were able to create a product that tastes like a gummy bear, or like a fruit snack. The kids really like it. It's the protein profile is really unique in the SuperChews because it's both whey and gelatin. So you get 50% or so of the protein coming in the form of collagen, and the other 50% coming in the form of whey, which is more for your muscle building. So you get kind of the hair, skin, and nails protein and the collagen protein at the same time. So that's what's unique about that product. Besides the fact that most all gummies have quite an amount of sugar in it, or they use pectin instead of gelatin. It's very few gummies that actually use gelatin nowadays, and I don't really understand why. I think it makes a better gummy. It's much better nutritionally than pectin or any of the syrups. Lots of gummies have a lot of syrups in them, make them kind of shelf stable by adding that sugar that's in the syrup. We wanted to avoid that. Our Super Chews, they won't last for years like a gummy bear will, but that's because we don't use any sugar. We really just recommend folks keep it in the fridge, and they last a long time in there, and they taste great coming out of the fridge. And then quickly, our last product that we've launched then was when we turned our focus to protein bars. If you look at any of you ever go to the grocery store, you'll see there's a whole aisle full of protein bars. Most of them have a significant amount of ingredients on the back, usually 1 or 2 dozen, all sorts of different starches and fibers and gums and lecithins and things like that that really didn't know were necessary. And so thinking about how to create the Bear Bar, it was really, if our grandparents were going to make a protein bar 80 years ago, what would they have used? And thinking about it, it's like, well, back then they had lard, they had tallow. As a protein powder, you could really use whey, which almost everyone does, or you could use beef protein. And since we wanted to use tallow as the fat base, we thought pairing that with beef protein, both coming from cattle, would go the best together. And then for a way to sweeten it, we thought we didn't want to use sugar alcohols or allulose or any of the other stuff like that that folks have been using lately. We just wanted to use honey. And so this is not a zero carb or very low carb product, but it's really those 3 ingredients. The only other thing that's in there is a pinch of salt, and it's like next to no salt, but really it's just tallow, beef protein, and honey. And that was the least amount of ingredients I thought you could make a bar with. So that's what I tried experimenting with. I didn't know if it would actually taste good or not, but surprisingly, you put beef protein and tallow together and a little bit of honey, and those things actually taste really good together. So we were really excited to launch that. It's, like I said, 3 ingredients plus a pinch of salt, and it's got a really unique texture since it's mostly tallow based. If you like a firmer bite into your bar, just throw it in the fridge. If you like it more soft, kind of like fudge, put it in your pocket, and you can just tailor it to how you like to eat it the best. But it's filling. It's not too sweet. It's got a nice savory taste to it. It just was a really unique product. And I was really just hoping we could make a palatable product with 3 ingredients. And it ended up tasting much better than I was even hoping for. So we've only been selling that for about a month now, but it's the folks that have tried it, for the most part, people are really enjoying it. So it's been great to see that.
That's awesome. So it really all began with your family, your kiddos. Like, I think ourselves as parents can relate to that, where we start changing things once we have these children to take care of, right? I will say I have tried the honey bar for those, or honey bear bar for those of you wondering, and I love it. And one of the things I love about it as well, and I know we have talked in the DMs about it, is there's no natural flavors. It is so hard to find a good protein supplement in a sense. Like, this isn't, obviously if you can have the steak and the beef, that's always the ideal, but sometimes we're in a rush and we need to go somewhere. And last week, that was my case on one of the days. So I brought one of these and I was like, wow, it's not super sweet. Like you said, for me, it doesn't trigger like, oh, I want to go have a bowl of ice cream or something now. It's just enough where it's, like you said, it's palatable. I don't need any other artificial flavors because the meat and the fat in itself tastes good with the honey. So I enjoyed it. And I'm actually going to be having this one afterwards, and I have a CGM on. So some people that are concerned about the honey, I'll show you what it does to my blood glucose. Just stay tuned to the end of the video and you'll see that as well. But for macronutrients, it's a great profile: 15 grams of fat, 12 grams of carbs, and 20 grams of protein. So an easy one for after a workout as well, or going for a walk, whatever it is. I think it's a great formulation. So you aimed as the company PowerPuck to avoid the common fillers, seed oils. While most people understand now, there is a lot of talk about seed oils and all these ingredients trying to clean up the food industry in America currently. Anybody that may not fully be aware, can you explain the reasoning behind these decisions? Like, how does getting rid of seed oils and all these fillers actually help someone's health?
Yeah, of course. So I've done a lot of stuff over the years with how I eat. I've done a whole lot of experimenting, which would be a whole nother lot of thing to talk about. Starting probably 4 years ago, I really stopped eating seed oils, and I just wanted to see what would happen. And I noticed a lot of things change in me personally. My inflammation markers went down over the first 18 months substantially. I have virtually no inflammation in my blood work anymore. one of the most interesting things for me anyways, as you can see, I've got red hair, and I spent my entire life basically avoiding the sun. If I was in the pool, I was wearing a long sleeve shirt. I always wore pants when we were outside in the summer, even if it was 100 degrees. I just always avoided the sun because I would get burned very easily. As I stopped eating seed oils, I haven't worn sunscreen since 2022. So I haven't worn sunscreen for over 2 years now. And that includes when we go to Mexico. I just don't burn anymore. And for somebody with like red hair, that's for me. Like, I never in a million years would have thought that just eliminating those from my diet would have caused that. And now it's not only that I don't burn, it's that now during the summer, I'll go outside when the sun's out and I'll lay outside for 30 to 40 minutes with my shirt off and I don't get sunburned, which I'll never be able to get over that just because of the last 30 years of my life, what it's been like. So that right there was just another thing to me, like really just eliminating those completely made it so I don't get burned by the sun anymore. Just there's so many things that happen from eliminating those seed oils. And since then, I've basically kept that going. We cook with tallow, we cook with coconut oil. That's kind of what we use. And again, that was the theme of the PowerPuck. It was to get a product out there based in tallow, not based with some sort of sunflower oil or safflower oil or something like that in it. And we just wanted to make a product without that. So the current PowerPucks, they are tallow based. We have a cacao version also, but they were using standard protein powders, which most bars do that for flavoring. What I've been working on the last several months, and I think we finally figured it all out, was we're actually been working on making our own protein powders. And my goal was I didn't want to use natural flavors anymore, which we will be able to get rid of those in all of our products now. I didn't like the fact that virtually every protein powder has guar gum in it or acacia fiber or something like that, which I didn't see why it was necessary. And then lastly, virtually every protein powder has sunflower lecithin on it. That I also didn't understand why it was needed. And I just had to learn a little bit more about the process, about how protein powder is made. And we basically changed the process a little bit. And we are now able to make a protein powder that has no sunflower lecithin, no guar gums. It won't have natural flavors. And it's really good. I'm really excited to start using it in the pucks. It's extremely creamy. The protein isolate is very dry. Therefore, you need a lot of natural flavors to make it taste better because it's been so processed to remove everything. Leaving the fat in has been awesome because it's like I said, so far we can take this protein powder and you mix it in water, and my kids think it's milk because it's so creamy. So I give it to them, and the prototypes we've developed so far, and they think it's chocolate milk. Like they think that I just made them chocolate milk, and it's not. It's just this creamy protein powder in the water. So I'm really excited about that because leaving the fat in the product, in the powder, it also completely changes the texture of the PowerPuck too. Those of you who have eaten tallow before, tallow's normally, it's a little waxier. If you're not used to what it is, people think it's waxy right off the bat. With this now, that's completely gone. It's hard to describe. It's just much more rich and creamy in the bite. And so I'm really excited to start doing that. And the best part is we're also able to then get rid of, since we're making the protein powder ourselves, we don't need to use the natural flavors, which, those of you who know, you buy a protein powder, it's very hard to find one that doesn't have natural flavors. Virtually impossible to find one without sunflower lecithin. But if you can find one without natural flavors and no sunflower lecithin, it probably doesn't mix very well at all, or it's very difficult to mix. What's been awesome about the way we've been able to formulate this is I was scared about being able to mix as well without the sunflower lecithin. And you ask anybody who's been in the protein business for a long time, they'll tell you it's not possible. I'm glad to say I can take this protein powder, put it in a shaker, and shake it vigorously to where normally a normal protein powder, I then have to let it sit there for a couple of minutes for the foam to go down. I can shake this like crazy, and by the time I set it down, the foam is gone. It's really, really cool. So I'm really excited about it. We'll be flavoring it, real ingredients. So basically the same we're doing with the Bear Bars. So it'll be just organic cocoa powder for our chocolate version, organic vanilla bean powder for our vanillas. We have an espresso that's just organic espresso powder. That's really good. I'm excited to get out there. And these same flavors are also something we're working on for the Bear Bar. The Bear Bar right now is just the 3 ingredients, so the beef protein and the honey. And that's what we call our original or our honey bear bar. We will be launching a flavor of each of these, and it's nothing crazy. It's literally one more ingredient. So you got your beef protein, your tallow, and your honey. And then the only other thing we add is whatever the flavor of the bar is. So we'll have a cocoa one, again, with the organic cocoa, a vanilla one with the organic vanilla bean. The espresso bar is awesome. I'm excited to get that one out there. And then this fourth one, which ended up being really good, and I was skeptical at first, we put in organic freeze-dried strawberry powder. And you'd think mixing strawberry with, beef protein and tallow, it might not be great. And so that's why I was skeptical as well. But it's actually been a lot of people that have tried so far their favorite one. It's got like a yogurt kind of parfait flavor to it. Each thing, we're only putting in 1 gram. So just 1 gram of strawberry powder, 1 gram of cocoa powder. So it's very, very light flavoring, but that's really all you need, because when you have tallow, that's the main fat in a product. Since it's a little bit of, that's why the honey, just a little bit of honey flavors it, just a little bit. 1 gram of these various organic powders gives the bar a nice hint of chocolate, a nice hint of vanilla or espresso. We're really excited to launch that out, because we'll then have, I think, a suite of bars that are, you really can't use less ingredients than what we're currently using, unless you're just making straight pemmican. Anything else, that was our goal with the bear bar anyways, was what's the least amount of ingredients you can use? Because everybody, if you follow the bar industry over the years, it's been, we're only using 20 ingredients, and that's like their new selling point. And we're only using 15. And now some are like, we're only using 10. And we were like, well, what's the least amount you can ever use? It's a fat and it's a powder. So we're like, okay, let's see if we can make something good with just those 3. And that was the original bear bar. And now to flavor it, you can't, you got to add at least 1 thing. And that's all we're doing, is adding 1 thing to get that flavor. We'll start hopefully rolling those out right around New Year's. And really excited to get feedback from people on that as well.
That's awesome. I love this story. And I really think you hit it like the nail on the head with a lot of this stuff. There was another protein company, I will leave nameless, protein powder company, who for their vanilla flavor uses natural flavor. And a part of me was like, I feel like vanilla would be one of the easiest ones that you could actually use, like an actual vanilla bean or something, and it not be super expensive. But they claimed, any company who claims that it's really vanilla and it's not natural flavor, it's going to be super expensive. And I was like, there was something about that started having me twist and be like, I'm not sure about that, So I think it's great. People are starting to get on board with the whole natural flavors thing, and how ingredients can be hidden in that label. And if you look at an ingredient list and it says natural flavors, if you don't reach out to the company and ask them exactly what is that, they can hide other ingredients under that label, is what I'm trying to say. Like
all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of stuff, all sorts of fillers, maltodextrin, all kinds of stuff. You never know what you're getting with that simple term, natural flavors. And on the other hand, there could be a company that is very authentic and like, no, it is literally just the flavor that's evaporated from, blueberries, strawberries, whatever it is. But at the same time, how are they evaporating it, and what chemicals are they using? And is that staying in the product? Because personally, I have no idea why I react to 95% of natural flavors. There's like 2 products I've tried that had it, and it doesn't bother me, but all the other ones, I will get migraines for days. So this gets me very excited to see you putting in your effort and your time and your money, and I'm sure sacrifice of your family for you to be able to do this as well. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, just one quick thing on the vanilla thing. You're totally right. So I just went down the last month, the vanilla rabbit hole, because that was my exact question, is when I was thinking, let's make a vanilla bear bar, why would we use anything besides just vanilla beans? I looked, and people are really clever with vanilla, especially. I haven't seen another product really that uses vanilla bean, but they get really clever with the name. They'll call it like natural vanilla flavoring. So it's not just natural flavors. They use or like real vanilla flavor or something like that. And all that is just natural flavors. That's not vanilla at all, or natural vanilla extracts. And none of it's vanilla bean, is just to say the least. So yeah, vanilla bean's more expensive. What I've learned with it and messing around with it is it's way more flavorful than the extracts and the natural essences and stuff that you buy. And so, yeah, it's more expensive, but you just need a little tiny bit and it works well. Funny anecdote is, as I was messing around with the protein powder, the other day actually on the vanilla is I figured out how much to use in the Bear Bar, and it's very little and it tastes great. And so I just assumed I would use that much in a scoop of protein powder to start off and see how it tastes. And I couldn't get that one to taste right. And it just kept being bitter. And I thought, is it the stevia? I don't think it's the stevia. I'm not using a lot of stevia, and I couldn't figure it out. And it actually was that it was the vanilla. Like I had to actually cut the already small amount of vanilla beans that I was using. I had to cut it by 70% more to still have a great tasting vanilla protein powder and water that tasted good. I didn't even assume that was what was causing it, and it actually was. So
Wow.
it's not anywhere near as bad as people think. I just don't like, as you said, the natural flavors. A lot of times they soak that stuff in petroleum products to get the flavoring to come out. They soak it in alcohols. It's even hard for me. I can't even get the flavor houses to tell me what's in their natural flavors. They just, and I'm the one buying the product, and they won't even tell me what it is. So that's why I've been trying to eliminate it where we can. There's also other chemicals they can put in there, like a lot of protein bars. First of all protein bars slowly get hard over time because there's a tiny bit of moisture in the protein bar. And as that slowly and naturally evaporates, the bar will just get more chewy. It doesn't go bad. It just gets more chewy over time. And to stop that, there's a company that sells a chemical called Bar Soft. I don't know I can't even pronounce the stuff that's in Bar Soft, but you just mix that in and call it a natural flavor, and it keeps your bar from getting hard. And so virtually every bar has that in it, and they just call it natural flavors. So they don't even have to talk about it. And I didn't want to put that in there because I just looked at it and I was like, this stuff looks gross. And so what we did, and you'll see if you ever buy the Bear Bar, is we literally have nothing in it besides those 3 ingredients and salt. And so if you leave it on the counter for, 45 days, it will slowly get harder. But I did a test earlier this summer. I was like, can I just freeze this? If I just freeze it, will it not start to get hard? And so a normal bar after 60 days would get pretty hard just sitting on the counter. So I made some bars. I put them in the freezer. I left them in there for a couple of months. And then I took them out and let them thaw. They thawed in like 10 or 15 minutes. And as soon as it thawed, it was just as soft as the day I made it and put it in the freezer. And so what we just recommend to folks is if you're going to buy 1 box of 8, you're probably going to eat it in a couple of weeks. So just leave it in your pantry. It doesn't matter. If you're going to buy 4 boxes, just put 3 of them in the fridge or the freezer. Sorry, not the fridge. Put them in the freezer. They're only this big. They're small 4x4 boxes. Just put it in the freezer and then leave one of them out in your pantry. And once you finish that box, take the next one out and boom, now you have soft bars whenever you want to have soft bars. And I don't have to put Bar Soft in my product.
Yeah. I love that. It sounds like you've really gone down that rabbit hole of really understanding and all the ingredients that that we don't even know. A lot of us don't get it, until you become somebody like Matt Owens creating these bars and trying to figure out how do I make this clean for my consumer. There's still a lot of stuff. I never knew that about the Bar Soft. That's incredible. Like, so there's another one why natural flavors is the new one for me that I'm trying to avoid. Obviously, there's like the 80-20 rule, 90-10 rule, whatever you want, like do the best you can with what you've got. That's how I feel. There's certain things in our house that still has it. I avoid it. My family still eats it. That's their choice. Like they have their own autonomy. But yeah, you do the best you can. And for me, I feel like this is going to definitely become a new staple in our house. I want to touch on the tallow a little bit because you've mentioned throughout the time, if you leave it on the counter, if I live in Phoenix, for example, so clearly I'm not going to leave this in my car or anything like that during the summer. I imagine that must have been a big hurdle trying to figure out how do I make a bar that stays solidified, but doesn't become too hard, all those kind of things. So maybe you can touch a little bit on like, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced while developing a product that met both your nutritional standards as well as like consumers' expectations?
Yeah, that's a great question because this is what I spent most of the summer trying to figure out was a better tallow. And tallow, I like all sorts of tallow. You can make tallow from trim fat, which is basically the subcutaneous fat from any part of the animal, the fat that's on your steak. You can make it from that and it's totally fine. That's the kind that I use when I'm cooking and stuff like that. Or you can make tallow out of leaf fat, which is basically the fat around the organs. The fat around the organs is a lot harder. It's a lot lower water content. It's a lot higher in stearic acid. And so it's a lot harder tallow product. Very few people or tallow companies use only that fat. There are a couple, but very few do. Most people just use any part of the fat, which is fine because most people are just using it to cook. But even when you are only using that fat, it still is almost like seasonal. It has to do with part of the year, how old the cows are when they take them to slaughter. So you still could get some variations in the hardness of the tallow. So initially I set out to try to think of like, how can I make it so my tallow, like how can we render this differently so that our tallow is always harder than it normally would be? And that was a whole nother rabbit hole by itself. And we did figure out a way to do that, to basically have a tallow that was always higher in stearic and palmitic acid. So it was always harder when it was made. And that was what I really needed for the pucks, because when it comes to these products, it's really the powder to tallow ratio that affects melting the most. So
Yes.
the more powder you have, the less it's going to melt. I haven't been selling the Bear Bars in summer yet, but I'll be very surprised if we have some of those that end up melting. If you leave it in your car in Arizona and it's really hot outside, I still don't think it will melt. Will it get a little greasy because it's so hot? Yeah, that will happen. But again, if you just leave it indoors, that's not going to happen, and it's not going to be greasy. The pucks was a different challenge because the pucks are a lot more fat and a lot less powder. So those have melting issues in the summer. So in the summertime, especially when shipping to Arizona, we have to ship those in insulated boxes with ice to keep those from melting. But this new protein powder that we've been working on is going to solve that whole thing. So these new bars or these new pucks that I've made, again, it's not summertime right now, and I do need to run a heat test on them, but just trying these prototypes, their texture is closer to the bar than it was just straight tallow. So they're much creamier. This protein powder is going to hold it together better. And so that's another reason why I'm really excited for this new protein, is that it's going to help solve that issue as well. So we did figure out how to make the tallow harder, but that's a more rigorous and time consuming process. We're still going to use suet tallow only, but I think this new protein powder that we've formulated is going to actually help solve even better the potential melting issues. So I am excited for that also, to see how that works in the summer. Again, the pucks are mostly tallow, so it will melt easier than a bar will, but I think this is going to probably add 5 or 10 degrees to what that melting point was initially for the pucks. So that's going to be something exciting to see as we roll into summer next year.
That is amazing. That actually makes me really excited because I just assumed like it would start melting. The grease, I could totally get that. But yeah, the fact it won't melt, most likely, I will definitely help test that as well. If you want,
Yeah.
I'll be
Yep.
here.
No, I'm excited for that. But like I said, we didn't really start the company to be a one product thing. It was just random stuff that we were seeing and being like, why are people doing it this way? Again, the pucks in the beginning was just a way to get saturated fat into our kids' diet more and our diets more, and something that was palatable because most people don't want to just sit there and eat a spoonful of tallow. And so that was the genesis of that. The next kind of problem we tried to tackle, my wife and I, was with the SuperChews, and it was really the protein. One example I always use is like my mom. I sit there and look at what she eats, and she's one of the typical, in the 90s, everybody was taught, don't ever eat fat, eat everything low fat. And she's definitely that way. But when you do that, so many of those processed foods, when they remove the fats, a lot of the proteins come out. And I look at what she would eat every day, and it's like 40 grams of protein. I'm like, Mom, you got to eat more protein than that. It was very hard for that to happen, or for her to do that. And same with our kids. What can the kids eat that has more protein in it? And that was the genesis of the Super Chew, is like, everybody likes gummies. Our gummies aren't as potent, flavorful as a gummy bear, but we don't try to make them be, that we just want them to have a little bit of flavor. We make a sour one that is really good. It's just, you just add a little bit of extra malic acid to it, and it makes it nice and sour. So if you like Sour Patch Kids or something, these taste similar to those. Really, the goal with those products was to just get more protein. So you have 20, 25 grams of protein in just one bag of gummies. And it's real easy for an adult or for a kid. I'd throw that in my kid's snack backpack when they go to preschool, and it's like they can eat that, and it's 25 grams of protein right there, and they're nice and full, and they got a big dose of protein for the day. That was kind of the thesis behind making that product. And I think we did a pretty good job, at least compared to what the options were out there right now for solving that.
Yeah, I love it. We will take, so this one is like half empty. my son is in jujitsu, and one of the hardest parts is there's always like this candy jar. And after class, all the kids go running over to the candy jar. And I mean, we've educated him pretty well on the effects. So when he has certain foods, I'm like, all right, go ahead and try it and see how you feel after. And we'll point out like, hey, did you see that meltdown you just had? Do you remember what you did different today? You had that, whatever it is. So what
Hmm.
we've started doing is because he already eats a very heavy animal-based diet, he doesn't need like a whole packet of these at once. But I
Hmm.
will just take like a few of them to jujitsu. And then when he's done, I'm like, here you go. And he's happy. He's like, yeah, he just wants something. He sees the other kids having it. He wants one. I'm like, you had a heavy workout. Jujitsu's no joke. It is hard. So it's been great. And that's why he's loved these. We keep them in the fridge, like you said. Once in a while, he wants a little snack. I'm like, hey, go get a gummy, and there's other things too. But he's been loving these. And then same at school where he doesn't really snack when he's at home, but he goes to school twice a week
Hmm.
and they have a snack time. And I'm like, well, do you want something? Do you want, he's like, yeah, I want something. Okay. So we'll do the same thing. Give like a few of those. We have other snacks we rotate with too, but he's he's happy. So we'll definitely be stocking on these more often for him too. This one's the passion fruit he's liked. He hasn't tried the peach mango. He tried the sour one, but he's not a big sour person. He's not a big sour patch kid. So yeah, awesome.
So
Well,
that product, we're in the middle right now of formulating our own, basically, PowerPuck electrolyte powder too that we'll be using in that going forward. So it'll be like right now, if you look on the back of that on the ingredient label, it says where the electrolyte blend is, and then there's a bunch of stuff in there. I don't think any of it's really bad, but we're basically taking out the stuff that we don't need. I don't need coconut water powder. I don't need the taurine. A lot of that stuff, we're taking that out to where it's just the base, really calcium, sodium, magnesium, potassium, and that's really going to be it. Besides the little bit of flavoring that we're using as well for that. That's something that we're in the process of too. Hopefully that is done again in the next month or so, and we'll be able to start using that in those products going forward as well. But you mentioned the kids. It's really funny. So I said we have 3 kids. Our youngest has just turned 12 months. Our 5-year-old, he ate what I guess a normal kid nowadays eats when he was a baby. We breast milk, and then as soon as breast milk stopped, he was having nasty formula that I regretted giving to him, and then went right into those pouches and baby food jars. And he was just eating those all the time because, I mean, we didn't know any different at that point in time. But then when our second and our third were born, it's been radically different. Like both of them, like our 12-month-old right now, I'll tell you, she's never had baby food ever. She's 12 months old. We started giving her ribeyes basically when she was 5 months old. And if you want to see something cool, give like a 6-month-old, like we would cut off on a ribeye, the fat piece on the top. We'd cut that off with a little bit of meat on it. So it was like 6 inches long, so she couldn't choke on it or something like that. But give a baby that's 6 months old a fatty piece of meat and watch them. They're like a wild animal when they grab that
yeah,
thing, and they just gnaw on it, and they don't even have teeth, but they just gnaw on it until it slowly basically disappears. And so, yeah, she just has always only had eggs, beef, fruit, and she does the same thing with the PowerPucks. So we'll cut a PowerPuck in half and give it to her, and she'll go crazy on that thing like it's a piece of steak. It's really cool to watch. So it's been fun to see the little ones eat that too. Our 3-year-old or our 2-year-old, he loves the SuperChews too. And so I do something similar when they're ever like, oh, we want a piece of candy or something like that. I always just say, go have some SuperChews first, and then so they'll go eat some SuperChews first, and then all of a sudden, instead of having 3 bite-sized Snicker bars, they'll have one. And yeah.
the satiety aspect of protein. I do the same thing. Sometimes, and as the kids get older, they get more stubborn. I'm realizing that with my 8-year-old now, it's like he wants to go have whatever it is, some, certain chips or popcorn. We get like clean versions of those. And I'm like, well, did
Mhm.
you have any food first? Did you have any, meat, egg, and any protein? He's like, oh.
Yep.
But he knows, like he'll complain, but then he'll go do it. And then it's significantly less. If he doesn't eat that, and he goes for the popcorn, we buy like one that's in coconut oil, and he will like any of us with popcorn. We just keep going, right? But that satiety factor is really important for our kiddos. So I love that you're doing this. I love you're putting the time and effort, and thank you for it because it's not easy. It's a lot of research, it seems like, to figure these things out. So Matt, I mean, I was going to ask you next, but you've kind of alluded to it already as far as like what's next for PowerPuck, new flavors, product lines, but it seems like the powder is your big one that's next. Is there anything else that you're thinking of or hoping for in the future?
Yeah. So I'd say the powder is going to allow us to revamp the PowerPucks and the SuperChews. So those will have, in my opinion, a better nutritional profile. All of the junk that's currently, the stuff that I think is junk that's currently in those, which would be really just the natural flavors and the sunflower lecithin, that will be gone. So we won't have that anymore. I think the overall texture of those and flavor is going to be a lot better since we're leaving the fat in the way that's naturally there. It just makes everything better. So I'm excited for that. I started making the protein powder for the products. I didn't realize, because the products, everybody just told me you can't mix whey protein into water unless you add the lecithin. Like you need to add the vegetable fat back to it. And so I just believed them. And so I was making the protein powders for just using to make the pucks. I didn't think we'd be able to figure out how to not only make it emulsify into water, but make it emulsify into water better than any protein powder I've ever seen. And so then I'm like, we might as well sell this as a protein powder too then, because if I could buy a protein powder without natural flavors and lettuce in it and guar gum and it emulsify, you can shake it up and mix it better. Like that's awesome. It will become a new product that we'll offer to folks. And then, yeah, for the bear bars, it'll really be just adding that one additional ingredient for the flavor. So I think we'll probably get the cocoa ones out the door first, and then hopefully we'll have strawberry or espresso right after that. But I'm excited for people to try those because they're all really good. If you would have just thought adding 1 gram of any of those organic powders would have done, I was skeptical. Why do people use natural flavors when they could just do that? So yeah, I'm excited to get feedback from folks on how that ends up being as well.
You gotta wonder. That's a really good question though. Like if they can get it, and it's the same with certain drinks, like the LaCroix, all those bubbly waters. I could never have, it's like, well, then I found Spindrift and they use the actual like fruit flavor. You know, I usually do like the lemon lime one or the lemon tea one is my real favorite, but sometimes the strawberry one. And I mean, my blood sugar goes up like 5, maybe 10 points if I'm doing it standalone, but if I do it with a meal, it's totally fine. So yeah, it's like, well, clearly people can do it. So then it makes me go down some other conspiracy hold as to why, like just needing to clean this food system up to the best of our abilities. So, and you're clearly one.
It's like the interesting thing about it was I started just talking like directly to the cheese companies, because the cheese manufacturers are who make all the whey protein. So there's like 4 big cheese manufacturers in the country, and every protein powder company buys their protein from those 4 cheese manufacturers. And so started talking to the engineers at the cheese companies. I'm just like, explain to me exactly how you make this. And so they were like, okay, we do this, then we do this, then we do this. And then again, I'm not a food person by any means, but I just was like meeting with these guys, listening to it. And I'm like, this might be a dumb question, but what if you just did this at this point instead of this? Work? And they were like, oh yeah, that would totally work. And I'm like, can you make me a sample of that so I can see if it works for what I'm thinking? And so yeah, that's what we started doing. And all of a sudden it everything that I've been saying, it has no carbs in it. It basically checks every single box that I was trying to check. And I was really excited when we started getting the samples in and it was working as I hoped it was. So it's a really exciting time. I think 2025 is going to be a fun year with stuff that we can start launching and start getting feedback from folks. And like I said, if you guys ever try any of this stuff or any of our products and you have any feedback whatsoever, please send me an email. I love getting feedback from folks on, have you tried this flavor? Or I never even thought of it. It was an email that I got from somebody that said for the bear bar, like, why don't you try adding some just fresh ground organic espresso powder? And I was like, oh, I never think of that. And so then I tried it and I was like, holy crap, this is really good.
Wait for that one. I am so stoked to try it.
Yeah. So it's just feedback from folks like that send a note, and then we start chatting and then I try to put their ideas into a product and see if it works. So love to hear from anybody out there.
I will say he definitely takes it to heart, because when I tried the original PowerPuck, I think it was last year, from someone else that's local here, they said, here, try this. And that's how I found it. It tasted pretty good. I liked it. I would just take little nibbles here and there, but the natural flavors I couldn't handle. And so Matt, like generously, not just because me, I'm sure other people as well, like, yeah, can we work around the natural flavors? So if any of you have any comments, questions, any of those kind of things, definitely direct over to Matt and let him know. And If he can fix it, I know I can tell he will. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the channel and sharing. And don't forget, guys, don't tune out yet. I'm going to share my CGM experience right after we get off. But let people know where they can find you, where the products are available. Are you selling them constantly? I think I saw something like it's intermittent at times for the bear bars, at least.
Yeah. So the company is currently called just PowerPuck. We're changing the name, or we're going to be changing the name to PowerFit Foods, because it was PowerPuck just in the beginning because we want to start selling the PowerPuck. But really our goal was to try to make a bunch of different products without all of these chemicals in it. And so I think PowerFit Foods helps convey that message better. So you can go to thepowerpuck.com or powerfitfoods.com. They'll both take you to our current website. We only sell on our website right now. We make all of the products where every week we're making in our own commercial kitchen, the PowerPucks and the SuperChews by hand. So we're doing those every week. The bear bars, I have a local company that we're able to utilize they basically have a machine that I can put a bunch of the dough into, and it can chop the bars up a lot faster. And those by hand was very tedious. So I was excited when I met these guys. And so we do those batches every couple of weeks. And so, yeah, the last ones have sold out, but usually if they do sell out, you can still put your order in, and it's usually been like 5 or 7 days before the next batch comes in. That's our current website. All of our products are on there right now. You can hit the contact us on there and it'll send me an email directly. So if you guys have any other questions or any ideas, or even if you were just curious about, hey, why can't people do this? I might have tried to figure it out over the last 6 months, and I can tell you whether I think it can be done or I haven't found a way yet. Just excited to get people's feedback and hear more of what people want to try, and then see if I can figure out a way to make it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And guys, up next right here is the CGM experiment. So here we go. It was wonderful to have you, Matt.
Yep. Take care.
Take care. All right, here it is. I am going to be testing the Honey Bear Bar. It is 20 grams of all natural beef protein, and it has grass-fed beef protein, grass-fed tallow, raw honey, and Redmond's real salt. The macros: 20 grams of protein, 15 grams of fat, 12 grams of carbs. Look at this. This dog's already wanting some. He heard me say there is beef and he came running. Anyways, I wanted to test this out. I do have a CGM on. It's cold, so I have long sleeves. You can't see it. But we're going to test it out and see. What do you think? I think the dog wants it. All right. This is what it looks like. It's been out of my freezer for a bit. Look at that. That looks delicious. He wants some. He's mad. It's like a soft marshmallowy fudge texture. It's not super sweet at all. It has just enough sweetness to taste good and not like a beefy, tallowy taste, if that makes sense. He really wants it. I don't think you need to watch me eating. I'm going to finish this off, mark it in my CGM app, and show you what happens just eating one of these. All right, well, here it is. Here's a result of eating the Honey Bear Bar. My baseline glucose was at 80. It went up to, I think, like around 87 and went right back down. It was barely a blip. That kind of fluctuation happens with just moving too. And I know I was going to the store and running errands. So if you don't know much about a CGM, it's a continuous glucose monitor. You wear it on your arm and it measures your blood sugar continuously. Technically, it's measuring interstitial fluid, which has a very similar number as your blood glucose. If you have any spikes, you want that spike to be no more than 30 points and come back to baseline in 2 hours. So as you can see, it's a very blood sugar friendly bar. I will say this one caveat. I tried having one in the evening one day and my blood sugar did spike more, but it was only about 10 to 15 points and then it came back down. So we all know you are more insulin resistant in the evening than you are in the morning or afternoon. That first one I did was in the early afternoon around lunch. So having one around 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, clearly my body's going to respond with more insulin. So if you are really interested in trying this Honey Bear Bar, they are coming out with new flavors soon, but this one I really enjoy. I have a discount code in the caption where you can enjoy a discount. I hope this video has been informative for you. If it was, make sure you hit the thumbs up, comment, share, all the things to help the algorithm with my video. Thanks so much, guys.